Hello, good evening. I was talking to my son today, and I've been growing my hair and beard for like a year or something, a little bit before the pandemic started, and I have it back today. It's like in a little man bun thing, and my boy looks up. We're sitting at the table. He looks up and he goes, "Ha ha ha! You're a clown because of this, because of this. That's like a clown." All right. My name is Dr. Azatar Bear. I'm a professor of economics and teacher of meditation. And what I specialize in meditations, heart rhythm meditation. This is a method that comes out of Sufism, and many different styles of meditation, many different kinds of meditation, many different philosophies that from which meditative practices of different kinds arise. And there's lots of them in Sufism, so this is not the only one. Um, but it's one that's worked very well for me, that I've spent a lot of years practicing and seeking to master. So the hallmarks of this method, what makes it sort of special or unique, is we put a lot of focus and attention on the breath. I mean, I should say, first of all, you start with good posture, right? You start with having an upright posture so that your body is in line, right? That you're not leaning too far forward or too far back. You're not slumped down, right? All of that. You're making it easy for yourself to sit or stand with an upright posture, right? It's one of the aspects of meditation. Meditation is, you're being still, you're being quiet, but you want to be very energized, right? And having that upright posture helps you to do that. Uh, okay, so in terms of the breath, most kinds of meditation focus on the breath, and that's a building block of it. You pay attention to the breath. With heart rhythm meditation, we're trying to go beyond just paying attention, right? We're trying to go. We want to pay attention, yes, right? That's important, but we want to go further than that. We want to make several specific interventions into the breath to really make your breath optimal. All right. And there's many different reasons behind this. One reason is just that this kind of breathing is very good for you on just a physical health level, right? Another reason is it helps you to relax, right? We have the problem of modern life is the problem of chronic stress, right? So, and we all have this. I mean, this is just like the consequence of, that we live in a way that is very different from the way that we were evolved to live, right? And there's some good things about that, and there's some difficult things about that too, right? But one of the difficult things is that our sympathetic nervous system, that is the part of the nervous system that concerns physiological arousal, and particularly the fight or flight response. There's a whole bunch of biological markers that go along with this: increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, etc. Right? There's stress related hormones that get released and so on. So we have very good markers for when this part of your autonomous nervous system is activated. Um, and this is the problem: is it's sort of activated a lot of the time, right? I mean, that's what chronic stress is, right? So by breathing in this manner, we want to reduce that stress, right? We want to activate the other part of our nervous system, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. Um, that's not the fight or flight. That's the relax and chill part of our nervous system. Okay, so it's associated with the opposite of all of these markers that I mentioned, right? So slowing heart rate, lowered blood pressure, and the release of other hormones uh, that all trigger that same effect, right? So what is this style of breathing that I'm referring to, right, by its effects? Well, making the breath deep, first of all, meaning abdominal. So you're breathing in your belly. Your belly is going to expand when you breathe in and contract when you breathe out. All right. So deep breathing or diaphragmatic or abdominal breathing. And we can sort of tell when that's happening by putting a hand on the belly and just seeing is our belly moving. A lot of times we like hold everything in, right? Especially in the abdominal region. Part of like being in control or part of having our armor on, right? Is that we keep that kind of like flexed at a low level all the time, right? So we want to just go the opposite direction here, right? Let that belly really hang out, right? Don't keep it in. Don't do any of that, right? Just relax it as much as you can. Allow it to expand, and then it's gonna contract as you breathe out, right? Um, okay, so it's one aspect, deep breathing. Another aspect, we want to make the breath slow, right? So breathing fewer times per minute than we normally do. We normally breathe maybe 15 or 20 times a minute. We want to breathe at a lower breath rate than that, slower. Okay, that slows down your thoughts, your feelings. It allows you a chance to relax. It even slows down your sense of time. Like if you're not looking at a clock, you have your eyes closed and whatever, you don't have a lot of external stimuli, you're not moving. How do you know how much time is passing, right? I mean, you don't need to know on one level, right? Because I mean, I don't know, you set a timer or whatever, or you're here with me in this class, Um, but still, we have a kind of unconscious sense of how much time has passed. And part of that is because of our internal clocks, right? And the ones that we're the most aware of, the ones that are powerful, the breath rate and the heart rate. Okay. So your heart rate is the product basically of your how old you are and your cardiac fitness, stuff like this. Your breath rate, that's more something that's under your control. Okay. So you can breathe at your normal kind of unconscious breath rate, like I said, maybe 15 or 20 breaths a minute, something like that. But we're going to slow that down. And it has, as you may come to see, it has a big effect on your internal world to do that. Okay. So deep, slow. We also want to make the breath rhythmic. All right. Rhythmic means same length inhalation as exhalation. Uh, we want to make the breath smooth to make it even. To man, no breaks in it, no pauses, um, no interruptions. Right, just let your breath flow like a river. Okay, we want to make the breath heart centered, and a good way of doing that is to feel your heartbeat and place your heart rhythm in a rhythm with the breath. All right, so we have the same number of beats on the inhalation as we do on the exhalation. Um, Not every kind of meditation makes use of the heartbeat. Uh, in fact, even in some practices, considered kind of a distraction. We're not looking at it that way, right? We're looking at it as this is the center of your being on a mental and emotional and even spiritual level, right? So there's a lot of benefit to be had from paying attention to the physical signal of your heart, right? So we're by making the breath heart centered, we are focusing the breath on our emotional and spiritual center, that is the heart chakra, all right? And we're just connecting it to the physical part of that, which is the physical heart, all right? And the last aspect, to give the breath power, to make your breath bigger. Breath is not just air, it's energy, right? We want to experience more energy, right? I mean, this is what the drive to meditate is about, right? To experience more, to go through the inner journey, to explore your inner life in all of its richness. which is phenomenal. It's very, very, very substantial, right? So there's a lot that is within each one of us, right? Each one of us is like a world. So we want to explore that world, right? Um, and to do that, we want to use a bigger breath than what we normally do. Okay, so these are the elements of heart rhythm meditation. These are that's the foundation. Okay, we can take that and build on it in a whole bunch of different ways. It's nearly limitless how we can tune it and change it to uh, you know, direct the energy in certain ways, or to use energy, or to call upon certain kinds of energy which might be beneficial at certain times. All right. Um, Now, I got a um, I got a question from a student, which really I wanted to address at some length, and the question is about, um, as I see it, right. The question is about self control, self mastery, and the way that it was phrased was, what is the relationship between thoughts and feelings, right? Because I had said a few times, during these classes, I forget which one, but that the philosophy of Sufism sees thoughts as being like the surface of the ocean of your being, right? And that's important, right? But it's not the entire thing, right? I mean, it's the what we're aware of, right? We have a thought, we're thinking it, right? We're aware of that at that moment. But there's a lot more to us than that, right? Thoughts are fleeting after all, right? And so Sufi philosophy is that these thoughts have a deeper wellspring, right? That there are deeper currents beneath them, and those currents are first the unconscious mind, right? So consisting of all of these impressions, these experiences, things that have shaped us, right, throughout our lives. Um, uh, Aspects that we are not in control of necessarily, right? Things have happened to us, or aspects of the culture as well. There's a kind of larger unconscious, which is bigger than ourselves, a kind of universal uh, unconscious. Jung talks about this, right? Uh, and so that's the idea, right? That there's deeper levels of a person, levels of emotion, and that as you explore this, these levels become less and less personal, right? So the question was, well, how does this relate to this idea that's in cognitive behavioral therapy, that says that it is thoughts that lead to feelings, not feelings that lead to thoughts? So, a different causality is at play here, and perhaps a different philosophy as well. Um, so, the way I want to address this is to back up a little bit, right, and talk about what is self control and what is self mastery, and hopefully you'll see the connection here. Okay, so uh, Sufis and a lot of different spiritual traditions really emphasize the need for self control, for self mastery, right? Um, in in the yoga tradition, this is sometimes called yama, right? So meaning exercise or discipline or control, right? So if you ever heard the term pranayama, sometimes you go to a yoga class and they lead you in some breathing exercises and say this is pranayama, right? So prana means breath, yama means discipline, exercise, control, right? So this means breath exercise, but it also means breath discipline. It also means breath control, right? And on another level, it means literally self control, right? So, the anyway, this aspect of the philosophy and the translation and whatever, right? But you see how there's such a close connection between like control over the breath and control over yourself at a very fundamental level. Okay, so this is important, right? Um, by changing your breath in the manner that I'm talking about, heart rhythm meditation, you're doing pranayama of a particular kind, right? That is, you are disciplining your breath, you're controlling your breath. And why is that important, right? Well, the Sufis talk about two different kind of broad approaches to the inner journey, to spiritual unfoldment. And one is a path that involves self-control, right? Um, and the Sufis call this the path of mastery, right? So you build control over yourself. You build also your ability to affect the outer world, right? Uh, and okay, so that's it, and that's important, right? We want to be able to be in control of ourselves. I mean, that's pretty much the only thing we can really control, right? Um, So very, very important. All right. Now there's another aspect to this, which the Sufis talk about and many other spiritual traditions do too, which is kind of the opposite, right? Like mastery is a very active, right? It's about, even if you focus it within yourself, right? Self-control, still that's a very kind of active orientation, right? You're trying to do something. Okay. Keep in mind, there's a lot of aspects and different spiritual teachings which focus on a very different message that say stop all this trying to do stuff, right, trying to be in control, and just be open, just be passive in front of the incredible grace, the incredible power, beauty, wisdom of whatever you want to call it, right, the infinite, the timeless, the eternal, or you want to call it God, right? Just be humble before that, right? That's another threat, and let go of your illusion in thinking that you're in control, right? So yeah, this is a very different message, right? One says, you know hold fast, the other one says let go, right? So the Sufis talk about these as the path of the master, right, versus the path of the saint. um, And they also refer to a kind of combination of these different paths, or the knowing when to do the one and when to do the other, as the path of the prophet, a kind of combination that is both of these and at the same time kind of neither of them at the same time. So um, it's a kind of to respect that there are different ways, right? Different paths up the mountainside, right? Um, and one might be better suited for one kind of person. Another might be better suited for another kind of person, right? And that's okay. That's good. We don't all need to take the same path, and it wouldn't be good for us if we did. Okay. So to before I go on, I'm keeping in mind that this is a meditation class. We should do some meditation. So I want to work on this. Let's practice the stuff that I've been talking about before I talk more about philosophical stuff. So sit up straight in your chair. Try to make sure that your knees are slightly below the level of your hips, or at least at the same level. Make sure that your head is in line, center of your body. You're not leaning too far forward, not leaning too far back. And pay attention to your breath. Feel that it's your heart that is breathing. Breathe in and let that belly expand. Breathe out, belly contracts. Taking in life, inspiration, energy, vitality. As you breathe in and as you breathe out, radiating, expressing, joining with life all around you. You may come to feel that the breath is like music that you're playing, like a conversation that you're having with the universe that involves both listening and speaking. Now tune into your heartbeat if you can feel that. You might want to place a hand on your heart. You can either do that by with the palm like I'm doing, or you can take your fingertips and just lightly press on your breastbone so that if your heartbeat is not apparent to you, you might be able to feel it if you just lightly press your fingertips. You might start to feel the pulse in your fingertips, and that's good, right? Anywhere that you feel your heartbeat is fine. So if you feel it in your chest, that's good. If you feel it in your hand, if you feel it in your feet, if you feel it in your head, there's many different places that you might feel that, but wherever you feel it, that's fine. You want to use it and begin to make your breath rhythmic with regard to your heartbeat. So that means using the same number of beats on the inhalation as you do on the exhalation. If you're just starting out, you might start with four beats in, four beats out. This is already going to be a dramatically slower breath than what you normally do because, if your heart rate is somewhere in 60 to 80 range, as most people's is when you're sitting still, um, then, the breath cycle that I described, four beats in, four beats out, is going to take maybe about 8 seconds or a little bit less. Um, And so now you're breathing perhaps 7 or 8 times a minute instead of 15 or 20, right? So you've already really cut your speed down, your speed of breathing much slower. Now, if 4 is seems a little short to you, then you do something longer. Maybe you do 6, maybe you do 8, maybe you do 12. And then you also work on making your breath very smooth, okay? So that means you don't let the breath rush in when you first start breathing in. You control your breath. Control it so you try to make it an even flow from the beginning of your inhalation, middle, and the end, right? So you are controlling the flow of breath. And you do the same on the exhalation. Make your breath real smooth. Now, the next aspect is to breathe more, to work on the full breath. So, breathe in and let your belly expand. Let it feel like your belly is inflating like a big ball. And then you continue on with the breath, expanding all the way up to your collarbone. Okay, so you're expanding the intercostal muscles around your rib cage, your chest, all of this as you breathe in, taking a much bigger breath in than you normally do. And as you breathe out, you do the opposite, contract all of these muscles, contract your abdominal muscles. Feel like your stomach is getting closer to your spine, squeezing out all of the breath, making room to pull in more breath on the next inhalation. Now, the next step here would be we're counting now, right? So let's say you're breathing in 6 beats and breathing out 6 beats. That's good. It makes your breath rhythmic. It makes your breath slow. If your belly is rising and falling, we know your breath is deep. All of this, right? If you're working to extend it, then you're working on the full breath. All of these things take time to master. So if it feels like I'm asking you to juggle 3 balls and then I'm saying, how about a fourth one? How about a fifth one? Right? If you feel kind of overwhelmed by all that I'm asking you to do, it's okay. You just do as much as you can. And you just know that you're going to be receiving benefit, even if you can only do one part of this, right? Even if you feel overwhelmed, you might be feeling like, I thought meditation was supposed to help me get rid of stress, not give me more stress. This is a different kind of stress, right? It's like trying to learn a new skill. So you can reduce that by not beating yourself up about it, like by, like I'm saying, any new skill takes time to learn. So if you're picking it up right away, great. And if not, that's okay too. We'd like to move away from counting the beats. And one way to do that is to use a phrase, right? So I have a phrase in mind, a very powerful phrase. And that phrase is, I am all that there is. All right. So this is six syllable phrase. Okay. I am all that there is. Okay. So 6 syllables. So one syllable per beat. So try that out a few times. Repeat that phrase to yourself silently. You're not moving your mouth here, you're just thinking it, right? You're thinking it on each beat of your heart. I chose this phrase because it's a very powerful statement, first of all. Gives you something to think about, doesn't it? Who is this I? I am all that there is. I mean, that is not how we normally think of ourselves, is it? We are very well aware of how limited we are because we are aware that we have limited strength, right? We have limited time. We have everything we know about ourselves is limited. Uh, and yet, there is a part of ourselves, there is an aspect of ourselves that is unlimited, that is all. So, by taking this phrase and putting it on the heartbeat, it is like you want this, create this experience that it is our heart that is saying this, right? I am all that there is. All right, well, we'll end that practice there and I'll go back to working on this question we have before us. Um, so I hope you're getting something from this. If you have a question or something's happening that you're not understanding, right into the chat thing and I'll try to answer it. Um, all right, so the the question right about thoughts, feelings, self control versus going with the flow, right? The path of the master versus the path of the saint. Okay, so the great Sufi master Hazrat Inayat Khan, whose school I grew up in, that's the lineage of Sufism that I study and practice and so on. Hazrat Inayat Khan had a very interesting teaching about feeling itself, about emotion. And what he said was, we want to be very aware of our feelings. We want to be, we because this is part of the inner journey, right? I mean, we want to know what we're feeling. That's very important, right? That's a big part of knowing ourselves. So we want to feel our emotions, but we want to express our emotions in the manner of our choosing. And Hazrat Inayat Khan is like, this is a very, very delicate, this is like walking a razor's edge, okay? Because the energy of our emotions is unbelievably strong, right? I mean, like, I think about getting angry, right? I mean, you guys are probably much better people than I am, but like I have a temper, it's like I get angry and then I want to fly off the handle. I mean, isn't that a common experience, right? Because what being in touch with what you're feeling, especially if your feeling is strong, makes you want to express it right there and then a lot of the time, right? I mean, this is why, I mean, like somebody says something that you don't like and you're arguing and I mean, holding your tongue, right? And that, in that situation, it's like very, very hard, right? So being in touch with an emotion often means like, "Okay, I want to express it right now." It's like when money is in your pocket and it's burning a hole in your pocket. I can't wait to spend it like that, right? So an emotion is much the same, right? We feel it and we want to express it. Boom, right? Like you have a secret you want to tell somebody right there and then, right? So okay, so Radhanayat Khan is saying, choose the time and place, choose the appropriate way to express your emotion because emotion is energy, right? And by express, I don't mean just tell somebody it, right? That's one kind of expression, you know. Emotion can be expressed in all kinds of ways, right? I mean, somebody could make you mad and maybe you don't say anything at the time. Maybe you go for a 5 mile run or something, right? And just hammer it out, right? I mean, this is something I've often done. Um, so what are you doing? You're expressing the emotion, but through that activity, right? Um, and that might happen whether you're aware of it or not, right? Um, very, very common, right? To have something come up in another context, right? So feel the emotion, but choose how you express it, right? Why is this so delicate, right? So the way Hazrat Khan talks about it is he says, well, because if you are choosing how you're going to express it, you're exercising self-control, right? What makes it delicate is, do we do too much self-control, right? Do we kill the feeling? We say, not now, not now, not now. And then the feeling gets weaker and goes away, right? I don't know if you ever had that experience of kind of suppressing or controlling an emotion, and then it passes, or you lose touch with it, right? You're like, oh, why did I feel that way? I don't remember that, right? So, there is control which stifles and kills the emotion. We don't want to go that far, right? Uh, and yet we don't want to just be reacting. We don't want to be just flying off the handle or whatever it is, right? We don't want to be reacting to every single little thing, right? I mean, you might feel sad during the day. Is it appropriate in that moment to start sobbing? Maybe not, right? Maybe it's best expressed in another way, right? Now, I'm not saying that because, like, oh, wait, well, it was, oh, it's inappropriate to cry or no. eh, I don't feel that way, right? I'm not trying to uphold some kind of toxic masculinity or something like that, right? What I mean by appropriate or inappropriate is, does that serve what you are doing or trying to advance or right, all of this, right, at that particular time. Um, and obviously there's no like hard and fast rule for this. There's nothing that's written into stone. I mean, each one of us must be the judge of this for ourselves as we go through life, right? So the reason I'm saying this is because, again, I'm still working on this question. Do thoughts lead to feelings or feelings lead to thoughts? And the answer is, it really depends on what we mean by thought and what we mean by feeling, right? So a lot of the times, what we mean by feeling is like, they're not very deep feelings, They're feelings of agitation or worry or anxiety. They're feelings of like, what if this happens? How will I react? What is this person going to do? Or how, are things going to hope turn out the way that I hope? Stuff like this, right? So I wouldn't really call these feelings exactly. I would say these are worries, anxieties, etc. Right? Is this an appropriate place to exercise some self control to say, look, I'm going to think about things perhaps in a different manner. I'm not going to energize my worries. I'm going to maybe take a different thought and say, things will turn out right. Now, is that true? Maybe not, right? I mean, things happen, right? But is that a good thing to say nonetheless? Yeah, probably it is, right? Because you should always prepare for whatever the thing is, but you by being tense and worrying and whatever, you don't necessarily prepare yourself. You might be doing worse, right? I mean, classic case is you know you can talk yourself, you can have so much negative self-talk that you kind of choke, right, and have very bad performance. So this is a good place for self-control, for redirecting your thoughts, right? Because we're not talking about a real deep emotion here. Okay, we're talking basically about a kind of shallow level emotion. So what do I mean? What's the difference? You know, what is an emotion that is not appropriate to say, oh, it'll all be fine about, right? It's not appropriate to try to talk yourself out of it or think your way out of it. Well, how about something a lot deeper, like grief or trauma or a very deep kind of pain like that, right? I mean, do you want to say that to yourself? If you lost somebody that you love, do you want to say, "I'm fine. It's not a big deal"? I don't think so. I think you want to experience that grief. You want to experience, even though it's painful. To deny it and suppress it would be like denying the bond that you have with that person, right? The meaning that they carry. Um, and anyway, it's not going to work, right? I mean, it's like, so what? Uh, Disrespectful if you are able to do it, but you're probably not going to be able to do it, because you can't really talk yourself out of real deep emotion. You can't really talk yourself into that either. You can control surface level stuff. You can't control real feeling. I mean, and that is basically the Sufi philosophy. So that's the reason we say like feelings lead to thoughts. Okay, so am I saying the other thing is wrong? No. Look, first of all, I'm not an expert in any other thing. Like I'm not a therapist. I'm not an expert in cognitive behavioral therapy or any other therapeutic modality. I've done therapy, but it's not something that I studied. So um, I'm not like equipped to say anything about that other tradition, right? I'm only gonna keep my remarks on the stuff that I know. Um, I tend to think like if there's something that looks like it's maybe a philosophical difference, it might not really be. It might be just that, I don't think a therapist would argue that you should talk yourself out of grief or something like I'm saying, right? They probably agree with me. Um, let's assume they do, right? Um, so let's think about it with something like love. You can't think your way into loving somebody, right? And you can't necessarily think your way out of it either. You know, so which leads to what there, right? Does the thought lead to the feelings? Oh, this person is really great. There's a lot to admire. You know, this person is really, really hot, right? Um, is that going to do it? You know, basically, no. You could give yourself every reason in the world, but if the spark isn't there, that's not going to. It's not going to produce love, right? Um, now, whether you agree with me on the philosophy or not is kind of secondary. Like I would say that about all the stuff that I'm saying. If you find it helpful, you agree, fantastic, right? If it's useful, or even if it's just inspiring or beautiful or good, use it, right? If not, if you disagree, well, then feel free to ignore it, right? I mean, you know, uh, um, because meditation isn't really about your beliefs per se, right? It is a method of obtaining certain experiences. Um, and if you're getting those experiences, the philosophy is at best a kind of a guideline. Maybe it helps you to understand those experiences. Maybe it helps you to make them part of you. Maybe it helps you to understand what's going on. If it does, that's great. If it doesn't help with those things, then get rid of it. Um, so that's my kind of attitude here. I don't think it's necessary. I'm not trying to convince you of one thing or another, right? Um, all right, so let's go back to our practice and let's work with the phrase that I gave you before. So take your upright posture and tune into your breath. Breathe in and let your belly expand and let your chest expand. Big breath, big life. And then exhale, and you are expressing your energy, you're radiating your energy, you are giving your energy, expressing yourself out into the world on an energetic level. And as you breathe in, you are receiving energy, vitality, life, love. From the life all around you. Make your breath deep, slow, rhythmic, heart centered, and full. Feel the beats of your heart. You can place your fingertips on your chest or place your palm on your chest to help with that. If it feels uncomfortable to have your hand up like this, you can also just press your fingers together, right? You can keep your fingers, your hands down on your lap and just press your fingertips together lightly. And you may feel the pulse there, right? So there's different tricks to feel your heartbeat if it's not easy to find. We know that about half the people can feel their heartbeats just from teaching this to a lot of people. About half the people can feel their heartbeats readily, and half cannot. So either way, is fine, right? If you can't feel it easily, you'd use one of these tricks. If that doesn't help, just keep looking for it. If you still can't feel it, well, you just imagine it, right? Maybe you get a beat or two somewhere in there, and then you just fill it in with your imagination. Okay. At first, you're counting using numbers, 6 beats in, 6 beats out, and then transition to using this phrase: I am all that there is. There's just something incredibly powerful about your heart saying that. I mean, that's what it feels like to me when I place this phrase on my heartbeat. It feels like my heart is saying this. And what an incredible thing for your heart to be saying, I am all that there is. Wow. It's just mind blowing. And we know that this is true on an energetic level. Even the energy that we can measure with our scientific instruments, the human body conducts a small amount of energy. Did you know this? Your spine conducts energy on a very low level. Conducts an electricity. So when you place a conductor in a larger electromagnetic field, then there'll be a magnetic field around that, right? So your body has a measurable magnetic field. And the amazing thing about magnetic fields is that they actually go on forever. Okay, this is a scientific fact. They get less strong the further away from them you are. But even by the energy that science can measure, your electromagnetic field touches everything else in the universe. Quite remarkable, right? So there is a part of this that's very, very true, right? To say, I am all that there is. Now, we don't normally think of our magnetic field that extends to infinity. We do not normally think of that as being as part of I, right? When you say I. But this is one of the things that happens in meditation. We are exploring, well, what is the nature of the self? What is this I? Who am I really? Like, I know my limits. I know I'm painfully aware of those, but what about the unlimited dimension of the self? That is what working with this phrase invites us to explore, invites us to experience. All right, we'll end our meditation session there then. And I hope you experience some of the what this is here. I hope that's working for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And of course, if you think of that later, feel free to message me on Twitter or Facebook if you like. That's fine too. Um, I want to mention if you're enjoying the class and getting something from it, if you want to really learn this method, take a look at my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/asatarbear. I put a link in the description. Um, what I offer to all my patrons is an entire course, a step-by-step course called Meditation Basics, and this it progresses over a whole month. It's self-paced, but that's how I'd like design it, right? 28 days, um, and you watch a short video each day, and you learn about like each piece of this practice. So if you're interested, check that out. I mean, you're certainly welcome to come to the class, and um, that's for everybody, and that will always be the case every Tuesday. Um, but if you really want to get into this style of meditation and understand each component of it, I would recommend that. Um, all right. So the other thing is, I want to just briefly address another question that I got, which is, um, what if you start to get kind of like spaced out or dizzy, or kind of like where your head feels kind of fuzzy like this when you meditate? Um, and I could go into more detail in this next time, but I want to just give a brief answer to this now. Um, there's two basic currents of energy that are very well known and have been described in a lot of different spiritual traditions. There's a rising flow of energy that rises both in the sense of spatially, right, rising like in this direction, but also rising in the sense of moving from more concrete, right, from the physical to the abstract, right? So from the world of form to the world of spirit. Um, and this energy, this rising energy, has been called Kundalini. This is what's called in the yoga tradition. Um, and that can often, if you trigger that rising energy, that can often have those kinds of effects. Sometimes people get where it feels like there's a tingling or a crawling sensation, um, or spaced out, or things like this, right? Now, Sufism works a lot. I mean, so there are practices that work with that rising energy. There's also a downward flow of energy, um, which has been called various things in Sufism. It might be called ishq. This ishq is like the word which means love, but divine love. Like a cosmic kind of love, right? The love that God has for all beings, right? Ishq. So we can work with that downward flow, right? That is moves in the opposite direction. So both in the downward direction spatially, but also in the direction of manifestation. Okay, so moving from something being abstract or being a concept to being real, right? I mean, anytime anybody's ever done something, it started with an idea, right? What is that? That's intangible. That's in someone's mind, right? It's a moment of inspiration, but it's fleeting, right? To make it real, we got to make a plan, right? We have to take steps in order to actually do it or accomplish it, right? So that's moving in the opposite direction, right? So if this upward flow of energy gets triggered, it can sometimes lead to some negative effects that can happen. So we have different ways of working with this in meditation. And one very good way is to breathe in through your nose and then Instead of breathing out through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. All right. In Sufi's tradition, Azra Khan calls this the water breath. Water has a aspect of flowing downwards, right? So just keep that in mind. If you start to feel kind of spaced out, or if your energy is like kind of rising up into your head, right? Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Right. Now, of course, lots of things can happen in meditation. The basic idea from Sufism is, again, you want to have a teacher, right? Somebody that can help you to make sense of these things. It can be a little thing, but a little thing like that could stop you from practicing. Like if you feel like, oh, every time I try and meditate, I feel worse. That's not good, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing that makes you not want to do it. So if you have something like that that's happening and you don't know why, please feel free to ask me. I'm very open to that. I invite that. So, because I don't want you guys to get stopped on your path, right? I want you to continue as far as you'd like to go. All right. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I'll be here again next week. So see you then, I hope.